So this is what's new in Axe Core 2022. To start, we'd like to do some introductions. So my name is Stephen Lambert. I go by he, him pronouns. I am the tech lead and people manager of the Axe API team. We are the team that manages Axe Core and the various integrations. I am the primary developer on Axe Core. I also enjoy accessibility and performance. And in my free time, I like to create accessible HTML5 and JavaScript games.
My name is Michael Siek, and I am the product owner and the primary developer for the Axe API team. And for all the Axe Core and axe-linter integrations, I also am big into open source and contribute to many blockchain repositories.
With that, we want to kind of start this talk by talking about some interesting stats that we've had in the past year since we last gave a What's New talk in AxeCon last year. Last year, Axe Core had about 5 million weekly downloads and 162 million or so total NPM downloads. Currently, as of when these slides were made a few weeks ago, Axe Core now has 8,429,697 weekly downloads. That is a 69% increase from last year. We also now have 463,763,585 total NPM downloads. That's an increase of 185%. So continuing our trend from previous years, Axe Core continues to be popular and continues to be downloaded on NPM by third-party sources to continue to show that we are the #1 testing library and most trusted. In the past year, Axe Core on our GitHub repo has closed over 300 issues. We have fixed 45 false positives, have merged over 335 PRs, and have added a couple new rules. I believe we added a new one since I made these slides, and which at the end we will go over each of those new rules. Talking more about our integrations, I'll pass it over to Michael.
Thank you, Steve. So Axe Core integrations, we have actually added some new integrations, mainly with Playwright in both their Java and Node integrations, and also a new HTML reporter with improved design. So I'm going to go into that demo for Java. So as you can see on my screen here, I have IntelliJ currently up with our new Axe DevTools Playwright integration for Java. It's very straightforward and uses the same APIs as most of our other DevTools integrations, with the ability to also have reporting. So in here, I'm just going to go ahead and run this test, and you can see that we're actually testing to make sure that the Axe results are violation-free. So let me go ahead and run this now.
And Michael, this is Liz. Is there any way you could zoom in a little bit there?
Of course.
Thank you.
Let me zoom in real quick. Oh, sorry, apparently I'm not able to here. But on the bottom here, you can see that the assertion failed because on the page itself, there are violations. And if we do test that with checking that that assertion is false, we can go ahead and rerun that test. And check that that test did in fact pass because there were violations on the page. Moving forward to what the new HTML reporter actually looks like. Our HTML reporter are static and have an executive summary now. I can zoom this in. These are the violations that were on the page. As you can see on the left-hand side, we added additional sorting and filtering. So you can now sort and filter by options, severity, types, tags, and all these different categories. With these, you can see the overall total issues, which match here, and a pass ratio of 79%. And also the different issue severities that you have on this scan. When you open up the drop downs, you can actually see what those issues are and actually click for more info to see how you're able to fix it, going to our Deque University website. And if you did have more scans, you're able to actually go through all the different scans on the top left with the drop down and go in through each one of those individual scans. So that is our new Axe Core integration. We will have our Axe Core Maven HTML playwright out shortly as well. So, and now for axe-linter. Axe-linter is the #1 accessibility extension for VS Code, and it is free. It's 100% free, and you are able to just download it directly from the extension or from the marketplace. We did add SonarQube support, and we did add Angular language support and added 3 new rules: ARIA allowed roles, ARIA valid attribute, and ARIA valid attribute value. These rules are consistent for different languages that we do support, and we do support JavaScript, JavaScript with TypeScript, Angular, Vue, Markdown, and HTML. And along with that, we did actually create a new SaaS instance for the axe-linter. And I'm going to show you a demonstration of all of this and how this can actually help your organization shift left, fairly easy to use as well. So on the page that you see in front of me is my VS Code editor. I currently have a project with TypeScript TypeScript React. I have axe-linter installed through my extensions, as you can see here. All you have to do is type in axe on the extensions on the left-hand side of VS Code, and you're able to install it. And as you can see here, I have an error because I have an image without an alt tag. If I highlight over it, you can see that there is the rule and also same link to our Deque University, so you can actually go and resolve this issue. But let's say I don't want to resolve the issue. I've created a pre-commit hook. So when I try to my GitHub, I can see that it's scanning for accessibility issues, and it will still find the same accessibility issue, the rule ID, which is an image alt, the severity, and where in my file path this issue exists. But if I want to continue moving forwards with this and say, I don't want to look at this and just go ahead and push it, I can go ahead and push it to my repository, and that's where we have a PR open, and also actions. We currently don't have GitHub Actions support officially, but we will in the future. It is coming soon. What that sneak peek looks like is this build will fail because there is an accessibility issue. Accessibility issue when you go to your Actions tab looks like this with the same information as you saw prior. All of the issues, the file, the rule ID, the line number, and what type it is, and what line content looks like. If for some reason you fix this issue, you can actually see it right here where this build passed. You can see the total number of files scanned and no accessibility issues found in any one of those. As an organization, if you do have SonarQube, we do have SonarQube support. It utilizes the same axe-linter rules in your SonarQube environment. You can see on the slide that it does fail and what it fails with and all of the same information. And for those that are DevTools or HTML customers, feel free to reach out to your account executives for any more additional information about any of the things that you see here. And if anyone is not a DevTools customer, feel free to reach out to David at david.moore@deque.com and make sure to have that in the FAQs for this slide. So I'll switch it back over to Steve.
Thank you, Michael. We're going to talk now about the new rules we added to Axe core. I'm going to start with empty table header. So empty table header is a new best practice rule, which ensures that all of your table headings have discernible text, table headings being any TH element or an element with a row header or column header. The problem that this rule is trying to solve is that table header elements should always have visible text. This applies to the new WCAG rules where they want to have accessible name required for some roles. These two roles do have accessible name required, so we will inform you of when those do not have accessible names. And they should also be visible accessible names. So ARIA label in this case would still be flagged. An example of what that may look like is we have a table element with a TR underneath, a TH with student name as the text, and then closing all of those tags. That'll be the good example that shows that will pass our accessibility tests. With our bad example, we have both a table with a TR and a TH, which are all empty, as another example of a table, a TR, a TH, which has an ARIA label with student name. That one, again, will be flagged by this new rule. The next new rule is frame focusable content. This rule is a WCAG 2A rule. It ensures that any iframes or frame elements on the page don't have a tab index of -1 and have focusable content inside of the iframe. The purpose of this rule is that iframes, when they have a tab index of -1, prevent the children or the descendants of that frame from being focusable, as well as if there are any scroll panes inside of that iframe, a keyboard user would not be able to enter that and scroll that content. So we will flag any iframe with a tab index -1 if we detect there's focusable content in the iframe. An example of what that would look like is we have an iframe with a title of clickable children. The contents of the iframe is a button with click me, used in this case as a source doc to show how it looks. That is a good example that will pass, but a bad example is the exact same thing, but now has a tab index of -1. In this case, you would not be able to focus the button inside of the iframe using a keyboard. The next one is ARIA text. This one was a highly requested feature, much anticipated. ARIA text is a best practice rule. This rule allows Axe core to support the role equals text attribute on any element, and this specifically works for VoiceOver and Safari to fix a minor problem where where a break in a single text node would require 2 stops from VoiceOver. So as you were swiping in, say, a mobile device, you would swipe, and if you came to a heading which had hello and then a break element and then world, VoiceOver would say hello and then a swipe again to be world. And so not the best user experience. So role text is a way to fix that issue where it will inform the inform voiceover that these should be treated as a single text node rather than as two separate breaks. But role text has a few caveats when using it. Role text will completely override the semantics of any role that is a descendant. So specifically, if you have a focusable and interactive descendant like a button, role text would completely override those semantics and you would not be informed that you are focused on a button. And so what that issue causes is now you have a tab stop which doesn't announce anything, and it's not user experience and can cause confusion. So we will flag any elements with role text which have any content that is either focusable or interactive. So what does that look like? The good example is a button element who will have a breakpoint, have a break line in between the words "the worldwide" and then "web consortium," and there will be a breakpoint between that. That would normally cause two of those swipe right type of problems. So we will add a span descendant of the button, which has role text, which wraps all of that content. That way, now VoiceOver will retreat this as a single text entity rather than two separates. The bad example instead will have a div as the parent, which has role text, and the div has the button as a descendant. This will then cause there to be a tab stop for the button, but it won't announce any text, and so that would cause accessibility issues. The next one that we added is color contrast enhanced. The color contrast enhanced rule is a WCAG to AAA rule. This rule is disabled and it will enforce the WCAG AAA color contrast ratios. So that's 7:1 for normal text and 4.5:1 for large text. You will have to enable this rule by configuring Axe if you wish to have it start catching AAA issues. Finally, we wanted to kind of review two rules that we had introduced last year that have continued to kind of cause some confusion and people have been asking about exactly how it works. So we want to kind of review those rules. And so those two rules are the nested interactive rule and the presentation role conflict rule. So the nested interactive rule we'll talk about first. It is a WCAG 2A rule. And what this rule does is it aims to prevent interactive controls from being nested in one another. Just like how ARIA text, when has an interactive descendant, causes problems, two nested controls that will also cause similar problems. Nested controls, usually if there's another tab stop underneath, will not re-announce the content. So you will have two tab stops in this control where one of them doesn't announce anything. And so that will cause confusion to users using screen readers. In fact, both ARIA text rule and the nested interactive rule use the same logic to determine interactive content underneath. So as an example, which has the text submit, that doesn't have any interactive content underneath it, so that is fine. In a bad example, what we now have is a div with role button. And underneath that, as a descendant, we have an anchor, which goes to the w3.org. That will cause a conflict because the role button takes the primary semantics, and so the anchor underneath is not announced if it receives focus. So we will flag this as an issue to help ensure that that doesn't cause problems. For the next one is the presentation role conflict. This is a presentational role conflict, is a not very well known idea in the WCAG. So this rule is a best practice, and what it does is it tries to inform you when the role that you set on an element for presentation or none, when that role will not be applied. So the concept is when there is a element with role presentation or role none, but that element is focusable, the screen reader is to ignore the role presentation and revert back to its implicit semantic role. That is because the screen reader does not want to get to a state where it has a tab focus that doesn't announce anything. So it will then default to whatever the native semantic or implicit semantic of the element is. This also happens if in a few other cases as well. So this rule tries to catch those cases to inform you when the role will not be presentational, even though you have designated it to be presentational. So as an example, we have the good example, which was we have an LI element with role presentation. Underneath that is a span with role menu item, text item 1. That will continue to be a role presentational LI, so there are no issues. In our bad example, we'll have a few cases. For example, putting role presentation on a button element will not turn the button into a presentational element. The button is interactive, it is focusable, so it will continue to be a button, even with role presentation. So we will flag that to inform you of that. We also have another example of an LI with role none, which has a tab index of 0. Any tab index, positive or 0 tab index, will cause the element to be focusable. So again, this element will not be a role none. It will not be presentational, and it will revert to being an LI element. The last case we have is an image element with role none, which has an ARIA label to designate the alternative text. The presentational role conflict will also happen for any global ARIA attributes that are present on the element. So in this case, ARIA label is a global ARIA attribute. So that will trigger the role presentation conflict. And so this image will not be presentational image, but will be an image element. We understand that could be a bit confusing. Like I said, this was not a well-known concept for developers and in the ARIA spec. So we're trying to help to inform you of when these things happen. Lastly, we want to talk about some of the highlights that we've done in Axe-Core 4.4. So in Axe-Core 4.4, which was released, I think recently, we have added support for the CSS mixed blend mode for color contrast. There is a caveat. The support only extends currently to the background colors of the mixed blend mode. The foreground color text is not yet implemented, and that is a future feature that we would like to add. We have also added a new check to our ARIA allowed adders rule called prohibited adders. The new ARIA or WCAG 2.2 introduce a concept of prohibited adders where some roles are not allowed to have some attributes. For the most part, those are ARIA label and ARIA labeled by attributes. And a lot of times it'll deal with elements that don't have a role or native role or implicit semantics attached to it. That goes along with the ARIA allowed adder will now report any violations when using global ARIA attributes on elements without a role. That ties directly into the prohibited adders rule concept. And so now if you try to put, for example, ARIA label on a div element without a role, we will flag that. Lastly, we have deprecated a few dpub roles, that is doc biblia entry and doc endnote. These were deprecated in the debug spec, and so we have deprecated them as well. You are still able to use them, but they won't report anything on our end. For bugs, we have worked really hard and we have fixed many color contrast issues in Axe-Core 4.4. We have also allowed the region rule to ignore buttons when used as a skip link. We found that there were some cases where menus were being used to designate lists of skip links, which were all buttons. So we just made it so the region rule will also accept buttons when used as skip links. We also fixed lots of ARIA allowed role issues that were reported to us, and improved our ARIA text and nested interactive content rules by allowing tab index -1 on children of those or descendants of those elements. We found that tab index specifically of -1 when used with elements that did not have a role would not cause accessibility issues. So we will allow it in just those cases, but putting tab index -1 on an interactive element will still be flagged because those are still focusable in certain ways by assistive technologies. And of course, we've done so much more that can't be listed. For more information, please view the changelog of axe-core 4.4. Finally, we want to talk about what's coming, axe-core 4.5. So unfortunately, axe-core 4.5 has not yet been decided on what will be part of it. We are still working and looking into that. We do know that we want to start looking at the new WCAG 2 rules that were introduced and what we can support. We do know that the new rule to the target size minimum rule is something axe-core can detect. So we are working on adding a new rule to support that one. We're unsure at the moment if we can support more than that through axe-core, but we are looking into it. Yeah, that is what's new. If you want to connect with us, please do so on Twitter at Deque Systems. Do so on our GitHub page, Deque Labs. We have a LinkedIn at Deque-Systems-Inc. or our YouTube channel, Deque Systems Inc.
All right, Stephen and Michael, you guys ready for some Q&A?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you both for a great presentation. We have a lot of questions coming in. If you haven't yet, please feel free to add any questions that you have for Stephen and Michael to the Q&A portion of chat, and we will dive right in. Let's see here. All right, so first question here from Morgan. How soon until GitHub Actions are going to be released? My team has been specifically looking for tools that catch accessibility bugs before.
We're unsure of when we're going to have it, but sometime this year, hoping soon. We're still currently in the process of developing it.
Got it. Thank you, Michael. All right. A few here about upcoming linter integrations. The first one being on IntelliJ. So can axe-linter be used with IntelliJ, or are there plans for it to be in the future?
Yep. So we actually have plans to introduce axe-linter into most JetBrains products. That includes IntelliJ and also WebStorm. So there are plans to do so. Currently not supported.
Got it. Thank you. What about integrations with axe-core and ESLint? Any plans to integrate axe-core with ESLint?
Not at this time that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. You said that, here's another one here. I'm just trying to group them together. You said that a GitHub integration is on the way. Any plans for GitLab as well?
No plans currently, but we can definitely look into more integrations with version control systems like GitLab and also Bitbucket. So,
awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So will repos owned by organizations be able to be used by axe-linter? Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah. So currently, if you use our pre-commit hook, you are able to run it on all repos, not just organization-owned repos. Depends on how you have your CI tool. If you use GitHub Actions, once our GitHub Actions comes out, that can be also used with repos that are within the organization as well.
Got it. Thanks, Michael. All right, still have quite a few questions here. Thank you all so much for being so interactive in today's session. Okay, this one is on color contrast. There's actually a couple on color contrast, so I'll go over both of those. We find issues using axe-core that either false or incomplete tests on color contrast. Is this issue we live with using Material UI, something they do wrong, or a bug?
So there are, so color contrast is quite a complicated algorithm. Trying to determine exactly what the color is in the foreground is very complex. And there are a lot of scenarios where we are unable to determine what the background color is. For example, sometimes you will have text on top of an image, and we are unable to determine, what color is that image background. There's no way to do it at the moment for axe-core. So there are just lots of scenarios that will get flagged as needs review or incomplete, that we will inform you kind of the problem that we ran into, as to why we think we can't detect what the proper color is. If you think that that is an error, please feel free to open up an issue on our GitHub repo of axe-core, and we'll be happy to look into it.
Awesome. Thank you. And I got a couple more on color contrast. Okay. By any chance, was one of the color contrast issues that was fixed to do with pseudo element backgrounds? I've had false positives because of that before.
If I remember correctly, we did fix something with the pseudo elements. Unfortunately, due to lack of browser APIs, we're kind of unable to determine the exact color of the background for a pseudo element due to being unable to determine the pseudo element size. There are currently no APIs for that. But I think we tried to make it trigger less often, but I forget the exact fix. If you view the change log, I'm pretty sure we list what it fixed for pseudo elements. Okay,
got it. Thank you, Stephen. All right. Do you have anything else to add about, Mike is asking, I'm not sure if this is directly related to the pseudo elements, but what about color contrast with background images? Potential issues are better than nothing. But
yeah, and at the moment, axe-core is unable to determine what the background color of an image is, especially if it's a complex image with lots of varying colors. So the best we can do is just inform you to do a manual testing.
Right. Got it. Okay. Let's see here. I'd be interested in contributing to axe-core. How would I get started with that?
Oh, great. axe-core has a GitHub repo. You are more than welcome to look at that. We have a variety of issues. We have tried to flag with a good first issue, I believe is the label. Those we have determined would be great starter issues for getting started with axe-core. If you want to work on any of those, feel free to go to that issue and then add a comment saying, hey, I'd like to work on this. I myself or someone else on our team will be happy to work with you during that. If you have questions, you can ask us and we'll help guide you to making a pull request for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. And thank you, Mike, for asking that question. We always appreciate extra support there. All right. When will axe-core support ARIA 1.2?
We are continuing to work on support of new things. ARIA 1.2, we have been currently supporting. The prohibited adders is one example of that with ARIA 1.2. We've also changed how our box pattern works to follow the ARIA 1.2 spec. So we're continually improving our Axe core to work with the new ARIA 1.2 as possible.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, here. Oh, somebody comment was piggybacking off of one of those color contrast background questions. They said Firefox can measure the range of contrast against the background. Can't Axe core use the same methodology?
Only if Firefox makes that available through JavaScript, which I am unsure at this moment.
Got it. Thank you so much. All right, still quite a few questions here. Let's see. Is Axe core freely available online, or do you need to purchase it, obtain a trial? Can you speak a little bit about just Axe core and how people would get started? We have a few questions kind of on that for people newer to accessibility.
Yeah, so Axe core is a free and open source tool. You are freely able to get Axe core from NPM, as well as various other download portals. You can run it directly in JavaScript on a web page. No license needed. We also have a integration such as the browser extension, which is also free in Chrome and Firefox that you can use to run it through the DevTools. But we also have our DevTools products, which gives you access, for example, to intelligent guided tests and other great features. Those ones do require a license.
Awesome, thank you. And the Axe DevTools, the browser extension, that's free. It's also available in Edge now too. So it's Chrome, right. Edge, and Firefox, I believe. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so this one's about the linter on VS Code. Somebody asked if the linter will be available for Visual Studio at some point, not just VS Code.
It might be available for Visual Studio, not just VS Code, but we're unsure when that will be available for users.
Got it. Thank you, Michael. All right. Another question on axe-linter. Will axe-linter support .NET Razor files?
So we're always looking to expand the amount of different file types that axe-linter can support. Currently, it does not support .NET Razor file types. We can definitely add that to the backlog of the amount of files that we'd like to support, as well as templated files that we'd also like to support.
Great. Okay. Another one on the hot topic of color contrast. Do you see a future version of Axe core where an eyedropper color picker is integrated to be able to do color contrast testing within DevTools?
I don't know. A separate team maintains the browser extension, so I don't know if we're best to answer that question.
Right.
Sorry.
We can definitely pass that along to that team. We're always, open to suggestions, so we'll definitely share that with them. All right. Let's see. Okay, this one's back on Axe core and axe-linter. So if using the free features of Axe core or linter in a large organization, do you still need kind of that enterprise license? I think the HTML enterprise license.
So Axe core and linter, we've shown can only catch about 50% of accessibility issues. With our DevTools license, you can get access to intelligent guided tests, which then bump that up to around 80, I believe, at least is the number. I don't remember that exact number off my top of my head. So, of course, being able to catch more issues, the better. So if you use just our free products, you'll still have to do 50% manual testing to catch the rest. But sorry, you'll have to do manual testing to catch the remaining 50%. That was a better way to say it.
Right.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, axe-linter. The only free product that we currently have for axe-linter is the VS Code extension. For the pre-commit hook and anything beyond that, using our SaaS instance is a paid product. Not necessarily with enterprise, I believe.
Right. But I think you're right there. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Stephen. All right. And thank you again to all of our attendees for so many great questions. We still have a handful here and some more time, so we'll just keep going. Okay. Will Axe Core provide steps for remediation in frameworks like Angular and React?
Probably not Axe Core itself. I think that might be more of a linter question. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, so axe-linter can help find issues in both Angular and React currently. So, and they actually help you with using Deque University to provide how to fix the issues and what the issues are exactly.
Got it. All right. Okay, this one's on table header text. What should be the table header text for select/toggle all checkbox, usually on the first?
I'm not probably the best person to ask that question.
Okay.
You can, someone who's a more subject matter expert on the nuances of accessibility and ARIA would probably be a better ask.
Got it. All right. Okay, so this person is talking about having a design where text is overlaid on an image. They're saying Axe flags it as it cannot determine the background. How can this be addressed? They have a design where text is overlaid on an image and Axe is flagging it.
You'll just have to do a manual review to make sure that the text does maintain contrast ratio to that image.
All right, thank you. Okay, another axe-linter question, maybe for Michael. Can axe-linter catch problems in PHP?
Currently, no. The languages we support are Angular, Markdown, HTML, React, and Vue.
Great. All right. Will the minimum target size rule account for spacing between targets? Axe Core question.
I am unsure. I haven't worked on that rule directly. I have intimate knowledge of how it was working. That's another teammate of ours who are doing that, but it might.
All right. And this is another one on ARIA 1.2. When will Axe Core support grouping of options in list box? ARIA 1.2. Not sure if you know that one.
I do not.
Okay, no worries.
If we don't currently have a similar ticket to it open, feel free to open one to let us know so that we can keep track of it better. I don't know if we have an issue or not for it.
Got it. Oh, and it looks like we have a fellow team member here regarding that other question. Wilco made a comment that yes, spacing is accounted for that last one on Axe Core.
Perfect.
So that's great. Thank you, Wilco. All right. Back to the PHP question, Michael, do you know if there is a plan to add PHP?
Yep. So we do have a plan to add PHP to axe-linter. We're just not sure when we're going to add support for that.
All right. Thank you. Just a couple more. Thank you, everyone, again. Okay, so this person just installed the axe-linter for VS Code through the extensions yesterday, and now they're getting an axe-linter server macros loading and downloads. Is that expected?
Yes, that is expected currently for the VS Code extension.
Okay. Great, thank you. All right, and this person said, it looks like it was just announced today that linter is going to be added to Axe DevTools. Can you speak a little more on this, or is there a talk on this today or tomorrow that will be elaborating on this?
Maybe. So axe-linter is part of the DevTools product suite now. So if you are a DevTools customer, please feel free to reach out to your account executives for more information. If you're not, please feel free to reach out to David Moore at Deque. We allow users to use the new SaaS instance, as well as enable the pre-commit hook, as well as SonarQube with that.
Great, thank you. And I do believe there is a talk, potentially, I think it's tomorrow on the dev track, where they will be talking a little bit more about that linter offering. So definitely check out that. I think we have time for just maybe one or two more questions. Okay, so this person's just asking to clarify if the axe-linter is free for use.
Yes, currently Axe is free for all users, and that is on the marketplace, so that's readily available. For anything else, like the pre or GitHub Actions or SonarQube, it is a paid product.
Great. Okay, this one is on ESLint. So why are you using separate checker and not build into community of ESLint?
I'm unsure on that one. Steve, do you want
to? Currently, we, I guess, don't have a way to support ESLint at the moment. So we're unable to contribute to their ecosystem.
Got it. All right. Well, with that, we're almost at time here. I do want to thank both Stephen and Michael for a great session and bringing us up to speed on what's new with Axe and Axe Core 2022. Thank you all for attending this session. We still have a lot more sessions planned for today and tomorrow. So we hope you're enjoying AxeCon, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.